Hello and welcome to the 2023 Connected Coast Annual Report for Skegness. And this is a great time to be doing this as we enter into the delivery phase, which I know has taken a while to happen, but there has to be a lot of planning to get these projects going. But over the next 12 months, you're going to see these projects start to come into fruition. We were very excited when we achieved nearly £25 million worth of funding from the town's funds. But with matched funding, that's nearly £50 million now, which has meant we can really make changes. And as you'll see later in the presentation, and as I said at last year's report, success will breed success. And what we've seen is because we've proved ourselves over the last couple of years, we're now attracting even further funding. And we'll be seeing over £80 million invested in Skegness and nearly £150 million invested across our coastline, something that we would never have thought possible only 2 or 3 years ago. As I say, this is an important opportunity for Skegness, and it was when we were setting up the projects and deciding which ones we were going to recommend for the government to fund, it was important that we set out proper criteria that we could judge them on. And what we wanted was for it to reflect a connected community, and that was one of the main decisions we took when we decided to merge Skegness and Mablethorpe together under one board, because we wanted to make sure we got full synergy out of the projects as they're delivering over a relatively short area, but also make sure we're not duplicating this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really change the future of our coast. We also wanted to ensure that the learning community was an important aspect of our funding. We need to grow the aspirations of our young people and make sure they know that they have opportunities locally, and we don't always have this drift away from the coast. We need to keep the best people here, and we need to make sure those opportunities were easy to attain. We also wanted to ensure that the current enterprising community we have already in place has given the tools to help them go further, and also have confidence that other people are investing in the coast as well, and not just themselves. We needed to make sure that we were resilient and could cope with whatever would be thrown at us. And certainly over the last 3 years, that's been proven, because nobody would have expected COVID, the very tight financial restraints that came on us since then. And we need to make sure that we come out of these stronger than ever. And I'm sure these investments will prove that. And with our demographics and getting an older community, we also wanted to prove that we could create a healthy community, which has been an issue over the last 10 or 15 years. And you'll see from some of our investments along the coast, they're focused on that, to create a place where people can be physically healthier, but also mentally so. And also we create a product that could be shared by everybody, and access is made easier. And with lots of our projects, you'll see we put changing places toilets in, so people can come and enjoy everything we have to offer, celebrate our heritage and have a great experience, but it will also be a great place to live. It was important that we looked at the connected coast. When you looked at the map, you can see that Mablethorpe and Skegness are very close to each other, and so we had certain exemplar projects that we put into Mablethorpe, who also had nearly £24 million worth of funds, and also in Skegness. So there's no duplication, but a lot of synergies that can be taken from them. And it was also easier to create one board with the best people we could get locally and county-wide to input into these projects. So we had a great private, public, third sector involvement to make sure that the consultation process was there and we delivered for what the community wanted and our visitors. As you can see on the left-hand side in Mablethorpe, we have projects like the Campus of Future Living, which is their exemplar project, and creating waves not only locally but nationally and internationally. The Leisure and Learning Hub, which we'll be able to share with the new tech college going in, so that skills aspiration can be spread along the coast. The Colonnade, which I think is an absolutely beautiful building, and again sets an example of what investment can do to change the whole experience and feel of a town. And what's happening with the National Trust on Sandylands and the town centre transformation Moby Hub going into Mablethorpe. And as you can see from this, there is a lot of sharing of experiences, whether it be on skills and enterprise, urban regeneration, or just connectivity. So we are working to ensure we have a very vibrant coast with a very promising future. As you can see from this slide, we've already spent nearly £2.5 million, and people will be thinking, how can you have spent that much when you've delivered so little so far? Well, we have actually delivered 2 projects fully funded and already operating with the police training centre and the multi-user trail. But also when these projects are being planned and making sure everything is sorted before a spade goes into the ground, projects do need a certain amount of seed capital. And some money has been sent to our partners, for example, Heritage Lincolnshire with the High Street Fund, so that when the projects start there, they can immediately help those small businesses who need the funding to make sure they can be achieved. And as you can see, we'll have spent all the funds by the April 2026, and all the projects will be finished by then. So on our progress to date, and as I said last year, getting the £24.6 million was not the end of the process. So we were really delighted to see that the government has such confidence in what we're already doing to deliver another £8 million to East Lindsey in levelling up funding in January 2023. We also put in the deadlines for the full applications for Skegness Foreshore after a relatively disappointing response from the first attempt. And I'll go on later to show how much has changed since then and how much more confidence people have investing in the town and how many more businesses wanted to be involved in this project. The funding for the levelling up wasn't the only successful bids that we had. We achieved another £5 million from the Arts Council in the cultural development funding in March 23. Again, growing the investment and making sure we can maximise the potential of our buildings and our seafront. In May, it was important that in all our projects we had consultation. So East Midlands Railway held a community day in the town hall at Skegness, where they could get feedback from people of what the new railway station and interchange really needed to look like. And that could be built into our plans. And it's great to see that that project has now started. In June 2023, East Lindsey councillors approved the plans to proceed with the £5 million investment, which was going to affect a very important part of our seafront between the pier and the embassy. And in June, we began consultation on what we should do with the Tower Gardens, an important part of our town centre transformation. It's a great asset that we have that has been underfunded over the last few years, and we wanted to make sure we got it right for what the local community wanted to see. So moving forward, the main project that we have is the Skegness Learning Campus, which will be located on Wainfleet Road. This is a state-of-the-art learning campus. It'll be the first time that we've had a dedicated campus further education opportunity in Skegness. It will hopefully mean that it's easily accessible and we no longer have this barrier of at least an hour's travelling to Boston or Lincoln to access further skills. It will also work on consultation between the college and the employers, so the curriculum is based on what employers need. So we're turning students out with the skills that will hopefully guarantee them jobs. It will be easily accessible, and it will also open up a whole opportunity for investment in that area. So we'll not only see the campus going in, but we will see further industrial development there and residential accommodation going in as well. The work will start in the second week of January 24, and by September 25, new students will be able to access this for the first time. And it will also create a statement for every visitor coming into Skegness on Wainfleet Road that things are really changing in our area. If you'd like to keep up to date with the opportunities this will offer, and particularly if you are a local employer, please contact skegnestech.ac.uk, as that will all form part of our consultation process. As you can see, this is an extremely expensive project. Over £26 million being invested, £14 million worth of Towns Funds investment alone. 15,000 students will go through this college over the next 30 years. This is a great example of when we talked about our priorities early on of supporting learning, connected, enterprising communities. And this project will make a real difference for what we're trying to do there. Our second project is the Skegness Interchange, and it's important that we use the title the Interchange because it's not just about the railway station, but it's working closely with our bus system as well to make sure that when customers arrive into Skegness, they have as easy access to the coast as possible. And I think we would all admit that as a shop window for your first sight of Skegness, the current railway station does not meet our needs. And this is a great example of where we've been able to work with East Midlands Railway to achieve something that will reflect what a 21st century seaside resort will look like. So as you come off the train, you will have an experience that we're an area that cares, and it will create a great experience for our residents as they're moving to go elsewhere in the county or beyond. The work has started already with work on the Red Star building, which is getting the basic maintenance in there so it can be used. And we're going to minimise any disruption for our passengers throughout the time while the work is going on. The project is worth £2.9 million worth of funding from ourselves in the Town Fund Deal, and another £400,000 from East Midlands Railway. And not only does it create a very safe environment with CCTV, etc., being installed in there, it'll create an area where people can dwell, even if they're not actually catching a train. It'll be a great place to meet up. And it's also important that we'll have incubator offices in there as well. So when people start up their business, they have a space where they can run from a relatively small environment, but also work with other people that are setting up their businesses in that place, with an ability to have a digital office in there if they want to as well. And again, this is another area that will have a changing places toilet. So it is accessible for everybody when they come to Skegness. And that's what we're trying to do, is make the journey as easy as possible. We will also have new wayfinding signage going in, which will be aligned with what we're doing on the rest of Lumley Road, again, to make that experience as simple as we possibly can be. So our next project is the town centre transformation. And it is important that as people leave the railway station or first come onto Lumley Road or the High Street, they see a town that is suitable for the 21st century, but also celebrates our very proud heritage. So one of the key areas of funding for this is to provide up to 90% of the capital investment into new shop fronts that have to meet the scheme required and the heritage requirements that Heritage Lincolnshire will be overseeing, but will provide exemplars along the High Street and Lumley Road to hopefully encourage other people to invest as well. You will have seen already the scaffolding going up around Allison's, which is our first major project. We have another 6 that have already received planning permission and will be in place before March. And this investment will carry on. So if you're one of those businesses that believe you could take advantage of it, please get in touch with Heritage Lincolnshire and they will help you to see if it's available for you. We're also working with Lincolnshire County Council and the highways to see what we can do about getting more trees planted along Lumley Road to create the great feel it used to have that you see in old postcards of our town. And as I mentioned on the railway project, new wayfarer signage to make the whole connectivity between the seafront and the railway station so much easier. Another very important part of this project is we're investing over £500,000 in our Tower Gardens. These have been neglected over the years, and so certain work has to be done there to bring them up to the standard that we want them to be. For the first time in 40 years, we'll have running water from the fountains there, a new sensory garden that makes it available for all, and an area that we can all be proud of. None of this comes cheap. Over £2.7 million worth of town funds is being invested in the High Street area, Lumley Road and High Street, and the Tower Gardens. But we believe it will make a major difference to the whole feel of the town. It will create employment, and work will start on the Tower Gardens this winter. And again, it's been really important that we've had that consultation with people, getting to know what the residents really wanted to see there. I don't think this project is the end as far as the Tower Gardens is concerned. We need to find further funding to get it even better. But people visiting it next year will see a major change from what the Tower Gardens have previously been like. Skegness Foreshore was one of our disappointing projects last year, because when we initially went to market to see what people would be interested in investing there, the response was relatively muted, which was probably not unexpected after COVID and the turmoil all going on in the world. But now people are seeing that investment is happening in Skegness, as you're seeing today, and along the whole coast. There is a lot more confidence in what we're doing. And we've seen 18 people expressing interest in the various projects on the 4 lots on the seafront. And what the Town Fund will be able to do is make sure that projects can go forward, even if they have problems with electricity, gas, water supplies in these areas. The Town Funds deals can invest in those to make the areas available for future investment. So we're very excited to see what can happen in those areas, because the South Foreshore is in urgent need of investment, because that right turn from the clock tower doesn't seem to be made by too many of our customers currently. As you can see, in total, this is an investment of over £2 million, but we're looking at over £4.5 million worth of matched funding going into this. It's a massive area that is covered, but an area that does not currently reflect what the 21st century is about. So it's very exciting to see what will happen, and we'd hopefully be able to release more information on this early in 2024. Cultural Skegness is another example of where we can initially be successful in attracting funding here through the Towns Funds deal, over £1.35 million, but then people have seen that that investment is happening and are more likely to commit further funding. And that's why I think we were so successful with the Cultural Development Fund with the Arts Council. Over £5 million being delivered, most of that going to the Embassy Centre, but also a significant amount going to the outsides of the pier, pedestrianising the area between the pier and the fun fair, and investing in the chalets to the north of the pier. We all know they are an eyesore. They do not reflect what a seaside resort should be. So money will be going into those to create them as pop-up areas where businesses can try new things there and create a reason for people to visit. And it fills in a gap that's currently not right for where we want to be. Some of that redevelopment work will start in early 2024. You will see that the embassy will be closed between January to March as we start that first steps into making it into a culture house. The first one in Britain, something that we know works really well in Scandinavia, and there is no point in reinventing the wheel. We want to create this community hub where everybody can be involved. One of the problems that you have with theatres is they're often only used for 2 hours a day, which is a major investment with a big building space. And we want to make that available for residents and holidaymakers throughout the day and the evening for various reasons. And it can be used in various ways. And this success is, again, something nobody would have believed 3 years ago. We now have a partnership deal with the RSC. We're working with them what other productions they can bring into Skegness. And the first sign of success of how we are now on the national landscape is to have a week-long touring cast from 6 available in the embassy during October, with virtually sold out. And it just shows that when we have aspirations and we make people aware of what we can achieve here, things will change. And I think we'll see even more happening during 2024. And as I said earlier, although people will have been saying over the last couple of years, why is nothing happening? You got this funding over 2 years ago. Actually, some things have already been achieved and are up and running. And the first of those is the Police Training Academy, which was very important that we had available an area where people could train on the East Coast. The police weren't going to be centred totally on Netlham. We hope this will mean that more police officers will consider moving and living in Skegness. It created more spend in our area, accommodation usage by these trainees, particularly during the winter, spend during the daytime as well. But without this, the police are telling us they couldn't have expanded their recruitment process because they would not have had enough space as they had before to be able to train the officers that they wanted to recruit. And it's not just about police training. It also retained the parole office in Skegness and created a great training environment. So we're really pleased that this has been operating, and it's been going for over a year now. It took £1 million of our funding to make sure that it would happen, but there was another £1.1 million worth of funding to get the project finished overall. So a building that had been empty for 2 or 3 years now is back into play and creating an important asset for our town. It's created 60 full-time equivalent jobs through the various projects, and in December 21 was opened by Her Royal Highness Princess Anne and patron of the International Police Association. So you could see it's a nationally recognised scheme that we've achieved here. We also have the multi-user trail. For anybody who's driven between Chapel and Ingermells, they will know that this is not a road that's great for cycling on. It's not a way that anybody would want to walk between Chapel and Ingermells. And what this has done is improved connectivity. It's a great track to cycle along now. So cycling between Chapel and Skegness is a lot easier than it was before this was put on. And it's not just about that. A significant amount of trees, etc., have been planted here, over 13,000. So it's helping sustainability, but also creating good connectivity as well. This project was achieved by £500,000 worth of town funds investment, but also, as is important in so many of these projects, by partnership working with Hardy's, who's put in nearly double that amount of matched funding to ensure this project could happen and provide a safe route for people who are walking, in wheelchairs, on bikes, to move between Chapel and Ingermells, which was not in place previously. As I've said previously, one thing that we were very confident of when we secured the Town Funds deal is that if we proved that we could do this successfully, further funding would become available. And this is proven by the Levelling Up funding. In January 2023, it was announced that East Lindsey had secured another £8 million in Levelling Up funding, and this will go towards securing 3 major projects just inland from the coast. One, the Alford Windmill, which will have accommodation upgraded. The cafe area will be brought up to spec as well. The Alford Manor House, beautiful building in Alford, but currently supplies a lot of its catering through a marquee, which is not suitable for the long term. So we're putting in a new venue for that, which will fit with the current environment, but make the Alford Manor House sustainable for the future and give it a good income flow, great function space. And as the picture shows here, what we call the Spilsby Theatre or the Old Sessions House, beautiful building in Spilsby, but has not had the investment it deserves and is looking very sorry for itself. And thanks to the great work of the individual committees for these buildings who have put in the funding bids for them and are prepared to work hard in delivering these projects, we've been able to secure funding to ensure that they can be brought up and create great assets for their individual town and our local area. As you could see from this slide, the bulk of the funding will be going to the Spilsby Sessions House, but if any of you have seen the building, you will understand why. It really does need a lot of investment to get it to be structurally safe again, but £4.9 million will make a major difference to them. £2 million for the Alford Manor House, £1.1 million for the windmill, but that doesn't include putting the cap back on and the sails. That will be done by Lincolnshire County Council. So these projects will make a real difference to important buildings in our area. We've also been very successful in achieving prosperity funding as well, with UK Shared Prosperity delivering £4.4 million into our area and £1.7 million of Rural England Prosperity Fund, which will be spent based on 3 key themes: communities and place, support local business, people and skills. And these projects will be smaller amounts of money, more revenue based, and will be able to impact things even more quickly than the Town Funds deal. So we look forward to that coming online over the next few months. On this slide, you'll see some examples of where we've already been able to issue funding to various projects to make a real difference. One of the projects we've mentioned earlier, Spilsby Sessions House, this is going to have some additional funding for a revenue base to establish an all-year-round programme of cultural events and talent. Investment in a local visitor attraction supported by the private sector for extending the miniature railway line at Skegness Water Leisure Park with the addition of the Sunset Station. Let's Move East Lindsey, a pilot programme focusing on signposting and communicating more than 150 opportunities for sport and physical activity via a digital platform. These sorts of initiatives are really important. And as you can see, some other examples where funding has already been granted, but this is only a small amount of what is already being achieved by the Shared Prosperity Funds. And yet more success for our area. And this one was a real surprise for us when it came through, but great to hear that we've secured another £20 million funding over the next 10 years. This will be part of the long-term plan for towns. And it's important that people recognise that it has to hit one of 3 key criteria: either safety and security, high streets, heritage and regeneration, transport and connectivity. 75% of this funding will be on capital. The other 25% can be on revenue projects. And we will have to submit our initial proposals of how this will be spent by the middle of next year. But as with all these funding opportunities, it is really important that consultation takes place. So any feedback you have on projects that you think could be utilize this funding and fit under one of these three key headings, please talk to us and let us know what we can do. To give you some examples of what would fall under safety and security, might include CCTV, lighting, ideas to tackle antisocial behaviour. If you were looking for something under high streets and heritage and regeneration, this could be creating and maintaining parks and green spaces, high street cleaning projects, improving markets, preserving and improving heritage sites. And finally, on transport and connectivity, how we can improve transport links, cycling and walking routes, safer routes, new pedestrian walkways, electric charging, or other ideas that you may have that you think would fall under these three criteria. We need to get these into the government by the middle of next year. So please let us know the ideas you have, and these will only make our area even better. To think that we're investing over £150 million over our coastal strip over the next few years is very, very encouraging. I would also just like to take this opportunity to thank all our partners, particularly East Lindsey District Council, who have led on all of these initiatives, but also people like EMR, Network Rail, Magna Vitae, Skegness Tech, who's enabled these projects to happen. But most importantly, I would like to say a really big thank you to all the board members who give their time freely and provide a wide range of experience and really hold to account these projects to make sure they deliver exactly on what we committed to at the outset and we get value for money. Without all their hard work, none of this would have happened. So thank you again to all our board members. And we really look forward to a very exciting 2024.